Number: The Gathering Storm. The great hall of Ashara Prime sparkled like a frozen ocean. Crystals grew from every wall and ceiling, casting rainbow light across the thousands of alien delegates who had gathered for the annual Galactic Concord Summit. Species from every corner of known space stood in their finest clothing, speaking in dozens of languages, making deals and promises that would shape the future of civilizations. Ambassador Yellen Vasquez stood alone near a window, watching the alien sun set over the Crystal Mountains. She was a tall woman with gray hair and tired eyes. She had served as humanity's voice in the Concord for 15 years, and in all that time, she had learned one simple truth. Nobody respected humans. Nobody feared them, and nobody took them seriously. Earth had joined the Galactic Concord 300 years ago, when the first Velkari exploration ship found the small blue planet and its primitive inhabitants. The Velkari were an ancient race. They had ruled the galaxy for 12,000 years. Their technology was so advanced it seemed like magic. Their warships were beautiful and deadly, and they looked at humans the way a grown man might look at a child playing with wooden swords. The other species followed the Velkari's lead. Humans were tolerated. Sometimes they were pitied. Often they were mocked. But they were never, ever respected. A chime rang through the great hall. The military demonstration was about to begin. Vasquez made her way to the viewing platform where the other ambassadors had gathered. The Velkari High Admiral, a tall creature named Zethoran with silver skin and 4 eyes, stood at the center of attention. He wore medals that humans could not even name, awards for victories in wars that happened before Earth had invented fire. "Welcome, honored delegates," Zethoran said. His voice was smooth and cold. "Today we celebrate the strength that keeps our galaxy safe. Let us observe the finest warships of the Concord." One by one, the member species displayed their military might. The Velkari went first, of course. Their dreadnought-class warships slid through the sky like silver knives, beautiful and terrifying. Energy weapons fired in perfect formation, turning distant asteroids into dust. The crowd cheered and applauded. Other species followed. The insectoid Kreth showed their swarm carriers. The massive Gorvani displayed their living ships, grown from organic matter over centuries. Each presentation earned respect and admiration. Then it was humanity's turn. 3 frigates appeared in the sky. They were small ships, barely 500 meters long. Their hulls were scratched and worn. Compared to the gleaming vessels that came before, they looked like fishing boats at a naval parade. Vasquez kept her face calm, but inside she burned with shame. High Admiral Zethoran turned to look at her. All 4 of his eyes glittered with amusement. "Ambassador Vasquez," he said, loud enough for everyone to hear, "are these atmospheric skiffs pretending at starfaring?" I was not aware the demonstration included comedy. Laughter rippled through the crowd. Hundreds of alien voices joined together in mockery. Some delegates did not even bother to hide their smiles. Vasquez said nothing. She had learned long ago that words would not change anything. Only actions mattered. And humanity's time for action had not yet come. She thought about the message she had received that morning. A coded transmission from Earth Command, using encryption so advanced that no alien technology could break it. The message was short. Project Prometheus, Phase 4 complete, awaiting final authorization. She thought about what those words meant. She thought about the secret that humanity had kept for 200 years, and despite the laughter surrounding her, despite the mockery and the shame, Yellen Vasquez smiled. Let them laugh, she thought. Let them laugh while they still can. Far away from Ashara Prime, beyond the edge of mapped space, past the cold darkness where no alien had ever traveled, there was a place called the Prometheus Shipyard. It hung in the eternal night of the Oort cloud, hidden among billions of frozen rocks and ancient ice. Admiral Marcus Chen stood on the observation deck of the shipyard, looking at humanity's greatest creation. Even after all these years, the sight still took his breath away. The ship stretched across the void like a sleeping god. 47 kilometers of black armor and impossible weapons. Her hull was angular and aggressive, designed not for beauty but for war. Running lights traced patterns along her surface, each one bright enough to be seen from 1,000 kilometers away. She had no name painted on her side. Not yet, but everyone who worked on her called her the same thing, the Unconquered Sunday. Chen was an old man now. He had given his entire life to this project. He had watched it grow from a dream into a blueprint. From a blueprint into a skeleton. From a skeleton into the most powerful weapon ever created by any species in the history of the galaxy. Admiral. A young officer approached him. We've received Ambassador Vasquez's report from the summit. The situation is the same as always. Chen nodded slowly. They still think we're nothing. Yes, sir. High Admiral Zethoran publicly mocked our frigates, called them atmospheric skiffs. Good, Chen said. Let him believe that. Let them all believe that. He turned back to the window. The unconquered sun filled his entire view. In her belly were weapons that could crack planets. Her shields could withstand the combined firepower of any fleet in existence. Her engines could fold space in ways that alien scientists said were impossible. 200 years of work, 200 years of secrets. Every human who knew about this project had taken it to their grave. Millions of people had worked on her, lived for her, died for her, and not a single word had leaked to the galaxy outside, because humans understood something that the elder races had forgotten. Peace was not guaranteed. Safety was not permanent. The universe was dark and cold and full of things that wanted to kill you, and the only way to survive was to be ready for the worst. The worst arrived 3 days later. Chen was sleeping when the alarm woke him. He ran to the command center, where officers were already gathering around the main display. The screen showed a star map of the galaxy's edge. Red dots were spreading across it like blood in water. What am I looking at? Chen demanded. Intelligence report from the frontier, an officer said. Her voice was shaking. Sir, the Drovok swarm. They're back. Chen felt ice form in his stomach. The Drovok were a nightmare from ancient history, a locust species from another galaxy that consumed everything in their path. They had been defeated 10,000 years ago. The Velkari claimed the victory as their greatest achievement, but now the red dots kept multiplying. 3 frontier civilizations had already gone dark. Billions of lives, snuffed out in weeks. The Concord response? Chen asked. The Velkari are dismissing the reports. They say it's impossible. They say the Drovok were destroyed forever. Chen watched the red dots spread. He thought about the arrogant High Admiral, with his silver skin and his mocking laughter. He thought about all the species who believed they were safe because they had always been safe. Send a message to Ambassador Vasquez, he said quietly. Tell her Project Prometheus is complete. Tell her we're ready. He looked at the star map one more time. The Drovok were coming. The galaxy was not prepared. But humanity was. And tell her, Chen added, that the unconquered sun is waiting for her orders, across the galaxy. In her small apartment on Ashara Prime, Ambassador Vasquez read the message on her private screen. She read it twice. Then she closed her eyes and let out a breath she felt like she had been holding for 300 years. The time for hiding was almost over. The time for being mocked and dismissed and treated like children was coming to an end. She looked out her window at the alien stars. Somewhere out there, the Drovok swarm was spreading death across the frontier. Somewhere out there, the great powers of the galaxy were pretending everything was fine. And somewhere out there, hidden in the darkness, 47 kilometers of human defiance was waiting to change everything. Yelena Vasquez smiled. It was not a kind smile. Let them laugh, she thought again. Just a little while longer. Number, revelation. 3 months passed, and the galaxy learned what fear truly meant. The Velkari Third Fleet had been the pride of the Concord. 120 warships, commanded by veterans who had never known defeat. They were sent to stop the Drovok advance at the Kesron Nebula. Military experts called it overkill. The Third Fleet could have crushed any enemy in known space. The battle lasted 6 hours. When it ended, not a single Velkari ship remained. The Drovok swarm consumed them all, then continued spreading like a plague across the stars. Panic swept through the Concord. Species that had felt safe for 10,000 years suddenly remembered what it meant to be prey. Emergency meetings were called. Ancient enemies put aside their differences, and on the crystal world of Ashara Prime, the greatest gathering in galactic history took place. Ambassador Vasquez stood in the Great Hall once again. But this time, no one was laughing. The alien delegates looked pale and frightened. Some of them were crying. Others stared at nothing, their minds unable to accept what was happening. High Admiral Zethoran stood at the podium. His silver skin had lost its shine. His 4 eyes were tired and afraid. When he spoke, his voice cracked. The situation is grave, he said. The Drovok swarm has destroyed 14 systems. They grow stronger with every world they consume. Our projections show they will reach the core systems within 1 year. Gasps and cries filled the hall. 1 year. 1 year until the heart of civilization was eaten by monsters. We must combine our forces, Zethoran continued. Every ship, every weapon, every soldier. I am proposing the largest military alliance in galactic history, 400 warships from all member species. Together, we will make our stand. Delegates began pledging their support. The Kreth offered 50 carriers. The Gorvani promised 30 organic battleships. One by one, the species of the conquered threw everything they had into the alliance. Then Zethoran turned to face Ambassador Vasquez. His expression was complicated. Part of him still held the old arrogance. But another part, a new part, was desperate enough to ask anyone for help. And what of Earth? He asked. What will humanity contribute to this alliance? The hall fell silent. Every eye turned to the human ambassador. Vasquez felt their stares like weight on her shoulders. She thought about all the years of mockery, all the times she had been dismissed and ignored, all the nights she had spent wondering if humanity would ever be seen as equals. She stood up slowly. Her voice was calm and clear. One ship, she said. For a moment, no one moved. Then the hall erupted. Aliens shouted in anger and disbelief. Some laughed bitterly. Others shook their heads in disgust. The Kreth ambassador clicked his mandibles in fury. The Gorvani delegate's skin turned dark red with rage. Zethoran stared at her. One ship? He repeated. Ambassador, we are facing extinction. The Drovok have already destroyed fleets larger than anything humanity has ever built. And you offer us one ship? Yes, Vasquez said. She did not smile. She did not explain. She simply waited. This is an insult, someone shouted. Humans were always useless, another voice cried. Throw them out of the conquered. Vasquez raised her hand. Slowly, the shouting died down. The delegates wanted to hear what possible excuse she could offer. I understand your doubts, she said. I have listened to your mockery for 15 years. I have watched you laugh at our frigates and dismiss our technology. I have heard you call us children playing at starfaring. She paused. The hall was completely silent now. But I think, she continued, that you should see our ship before you judge it. She pressed a button on her wrist device. The main display screen at the front of the hall flickered to life. It showed a live feed from the rally point, where the Concorde fleet was gathering. 400 warships floated in formation, their lights blinking against the darkness of space. It was an impressive sight, the largest armada ever assembled. Then the sensors began to scream. Warning lights flashed across every console. The display showed energy readings that made no sense. A gravity distortion was forming at the edge of the fleet, growing larger with every second. What is happening? Zethoran demanded. Is it the Drovok? No, Vasquez said quietly. It's us. Space itself tore open. A fold space rupture appeared, larger than anything the aliens had ever seen. Their technology said it was impossible to create a jump point that size. Their scientists had written papers proving it could not be done. And then, the unconquered sun came through. She emerged from the rupture like a mountain rising from the sea. 47 kilometers of black armor and bristling weapons. Her hull blocked out the stars behind her. Her running lights were bright enough to cast shadows on ships floating 1,000 kilometers away. The 400 warships of the Concorde fleet looked like insects beside her, like children's toys scattered around the feet of a giant. In the great hall, no one spoke, no one breathed. Delegates who had lived for centuries, who had seen wonders beyond human imagination, stood frozen in absolute shock. The Kreth ambassador's legs gave out. He collapsed to the floor, his compound eyes locked on the screen. The Gorvani delegate made a sound like a wounded animal. High Admiral Zethoran dropped the cup he was holding. It shattered on the crystal floor, but he did not notice. He could not look away from the impossible ship that filled his vision. Vasquez watched their faces. She felt no joy in their shock, no satisfaction in their fear. She only felt tired. Tired of hiding. Tired of pretending. Tired of being small. A voice crackled through the hall's speakers. It was calm and confident, with a slight accent that marked it as coming from Earth's northern regions. This is Admiral Marcus Chen, commanding the UES Unconquered Sun, representing the United Earth Systems. We received your distress call. We heard you needed help. Silence. Complete and total silence. Then Zethoran spoke. His voice was barely a whisper. How? He breathed. How is this possible? Our sensors say that ship is larger than any space station ever built. Her power readings are higher than a small star. How could humanity? How could you? We had 200 years, Vasquez said simply. 200 years of being laughed at. 200 years of being called children. We used that time well. She walked toward the display, her footsteps echoing in the silent hall. You asked what humanity would contribute to this alliance, she said. Now you have your answer. One ship. Our only Titangent-class warship. The first and last of her kind. She turned to face the stunned delegates. The unconquered sun carries weapons that can crack planets. Her shields can withstand the combined firepower of your entire fleet. She has manufacturing facilities that can build destroyers inside her hull. Her crew numbers 180,000. She is not a ship, High Admiral. She is a civilization. Admiral Chen's voice came through the speakers again. We're transmitting our tactical capabilities now. We suggest you review them before the battle. Data began flowing across every screen in the hall. Weapon specifications, shield ratings, engine capabilities. Each number was more impossible than the last. Each statistic rewrote what the aliens believed about technology and war. Vasquez watched Zethoran read the data. She watched his silver face grow pale. She watched his four eyes widen with something she had never seen in a Velkari before. Fear. Real fear. This is, he started to say. This is what humanity built while you were laughing at us. Vasquez interrupted. This is what we created while you called us children. This is our answer to every insult, every mockery, every dismissal. She stepped closer to the High Admiral. Her voice dropped to a whisper. We were never weak, Zethoran. We were patient. There is a difference. The High Admiral looked at her. For the first time in 300 years, he looked at a human with respect. Why? He asked. Why hide this? Why pretend to be less than you are? Vasquez thought about that question. She thought about Earth's history, the wars, the famines, the plagues, the countless times humanity had nearly destroyed itself. The hard lessons that had been written in blood and fire. Because we learned long ago that the universe is dangerous, she said. And the best weapon is the one your enemy doesn't know you have. She looked back at the display, where the unconquered sun hung among the stars like a patient predator. Now the Drovok will learn that lesson too. Number, the weight of stars. The combined fleet traveled toward the Drovok front lines. It was a journey of 3 weeks through the dark spaces between stars. And during those 3 weeks, the aliens began to understand what humanity truly was. High Admiral Zethoran had requested permission to send observers aboard the Unconquered. Sunday, Admiral Chen agreed, but with conditions. The aliens could see only what he chose to show them. The deepest secrets of the ship would remain hidden. 12 species sent their representatives. Velkari, Kreth, Gorvani, and 9 others. They arrived on a shuttle that felt like a toy entering the mouth of a whale. The unconquered sun's landing bay alone was larger than most space stations. Observer Kethara of the Velkari led the group. She was younger than Zethoran, with curious eyes and a mind that asked questions. As she stepped onto the deck, she looked around at the vast space and felt something she had never felt before. She felt small. A human officer greeted them. He was a young man with dark skin and a friendly smile. His name was Lieutenant Park. Welcome aboard the Unconquered Sun, he said. I'll be your guide. Please stay close. It's easy to get lost in here. They walked for what felt like hours. The corridors stretched endlessly in every direction. The ship was so large that it had its own internal transport system. Trains and lifts carried crew members between sections that were kilometers apart. How many people serve on this ship? Kethar asked. 180,000, Lieutenant Park said. Plus their families. Families? Yes, ma'am. We have schools for children, hospitals, parks. The Unconquered Sun is designed for long deployments. Years, if necessary. We can't ask our people to leave their loved ones behind for that long. The Kreth observer made a clicking sound of disbelief. You brought children to a warship? Lieutenant Park's smile faded slightly. We brought children to their home. This ship is not just a weapon. It's a city, a nation. For many of the people here, it's the only home they've ever known. They continued the tour. Each new section brought new wonders. The manufacturing bays could build entire destroyers from raw materials. Robotic arms moved with perfect precision, assembling ships that would have taken years to build in any alien shipyard. The weapons halls held devices that defied known physics. Gravity lances that could collapse matter into points of light. Plasma cannons that burned hotter than stars. Missile systems with warheads that the humans refused to explain. The shield generators hummed with power that made the aliens' sensors go blank. When Kethara asked how strong the shields were, Lieutenant Park simply said, "Strong enough." But it was the crew that truly surprised the observers. Humans worked everywhere. Engineers and soldiers and scientists and doctors. They laughed and argued and complained about the food. They played games during their breaks and told jokes that the aliens did not understand. They seemed so ordinary. "I do not understand," the Gorvani observer rumbled. His name was Threk, and he was a massive creature with stone-like skin. "Your species has built the most powerful weapon in galactic history, yet your people act as if this is normal." Lieutenant Park thought about that. "I suppose it is normal to us," he said. "Every generation adds something new. Our grandparents built the frame. Our parents added the weapons. We're finishing the work they started. It's just what we do." "But why?" Kethara pressed. "The Velkari have protected this galaxy for 12,000 years. You had peace, safety. Why build something like this?" The lieutenant's expression changed. His friendly smile disappeared, replaced by something harder, something older. "I think Admiral Chen should answer that question," he said. "Please follow me." He led them to a part of the ship that was not on any tour, a section that required special clearance. The doors opened onto a vast chamber that stretched into darkness. Admiral Chen was waiting for them. He was an old man with white hair and weathered hands. His uniform was simple, without medals or decorations, but when he looked at the alien observers, there was something in his eyes that made them want to step back. "Welcome to the memorial deck," he said. "This is the heart of the unconquered Sunday, the reason she exists." He pressed a button, and lights began to appear. Names, billions of names, etched into black stone walls that rose toward a ceiling lost in shadow. Each name glowed softly, like distant stars. They covered every surface, every wall, stretching endlessly in every direction. Kethara felt her breath catch. "What is this?" "These are the humans who died," Admiral Chen said quietly. "Every human who was killed in the Unification Wars. Every human who died in the colony plagues. Every human who was lost in the Soul Siege. When our own star was used as a weapon against us." He walked among the names, his fingers brushing against the cold stone. 3 billion in the Unification Wars. 2 billion in the plagues. 1 billion in the siege. This does not count the smaller conflicts, the famines, the accidents, the disasters. He stopped and turned to face the observers. "Before we joined the conquered, humanity nearly went extinct. Not once, not twice, but many times. We have felt the breath of oblivion on our necks. We have looked into the void and seen nothing looking back." The Kreth observer shifted nervously. "But those wars were long ago. You have had peace for 3 centuries. Peace given to us by others," Admiral Chen said. "Peace that could be taken away at any moment. Peace that we did not earn and could not defend." He walked back to the center of the chamber, where a single name was etched larger than the others. The name read, Earth. "When the Velkari found us, they offered protection in exchange for our loyalty. We accepted, because we had no choice. But we never forgot the lesson that our history taught us." "What lesson?" Kethara asked. Admiral Chen looked at her. His eyes held the weight of centuries. "That the universe does not care if you live or die. That peace is an illusion that can shatter at any moment. That the only safety is the safety you create for yourself." He gestured at the memorial deck, at the billions of names glowing in the darkness. "We built the unconquered sun because we swore an oath to these dead. We swore that humanity would never again be helpless, never again be at the mercy of forces beyond our control, never again watch our children die because we were too weak to protect them." Silence filled the chamber. The alien observers looked at the names surrounding them. Each one represented a person who had lived and loved and died. Each one was a reminder of what humanity had survived. Threk, the Gorvani, spoke slowly. We thought you built this ship because you wanted power, because you wanted to conquer." Admiral Chen shook his head. "No, we built her because we were afraid. because we remembered what it felt like to be helpless, because we never wanted to feel that way again. He looked at each observer in turn, and now the Drovak have come, a species that destroys everything in its path, a threat that your Velkari protectors cannot stop. And suddenly, for the first time in 12,000 years, the galaxy knows what humanity has always known. He paused. That nothing is safe, nothing is permanent, and the only way to survive is to be ready for the worst. Kethara felt something shift inside her. For her entire life, she had believed that the Velkari were invincible, that the galaxy was secure, that peace was guaranteed. Now she understood that those beliefs were lies. Comfortable lies that her people had told themselves for thousands of years. Lies that humanity had never been foolish enough to believe. "Admiral," she said, "I owe you an apology. My people mocked yours for 3 centuries. We called you primitive, backward, weak. We were wrong." Admiral Chen studied her for a long moment. Then, slowly, he nodded. "You were not wrong about what we showed you. You were only wrong about what we hid." He turned toward the exit. "The battle will begin in 3 days. I suggest you return to your ships. What happens next will not be easy to watch." As the observers filed out of the memorial deck, Kethara looked back one last time. The billions of names glowed softly in the darkness, a testament to human suffering and human determination. She understood now. The unconquered sun was not built from arrogance or ambition. It was built from grief, from fear, from the desperate hope that no one would ever have to suffer the way humanity had suffered. And somehow, that made it even more terrifying. Number Gutter Demerung. The Kethran void was empty, a region of space where no stars had ever formed, stretching for light years in every direction. It was here that the combined fleet of the Galactic Concord waited for the enemy that would decide the fate of civilization. 400 warships held formation in the darkness, Velkari dreadnoughts with their silver hulls, Kreeth carriers buzzing with fighter craft, Gorvani organic battleships that pulsed with living light, ships from a dozen other species, each one representing the best their civilization could build. And behind them all, silent and patient, the unconquered sun watched. Admiral Chen stood on the bridge of his vessel. Around him, thousands of crew members worked at their stations. Screens showed tactical data from across the battlefield. The atmosphere was tense but calm. These men and women had trained their entire lives for this moment. "Admiral," his tactical officer reported, "long-range sensors are picking up the Drovak swarm. They'll be here in 20 minutes. "How many?" The officer's voice was steady, but Chen could see his hands shaking. 10,000 bioships, sir. It's the largest hostile fleet ever recorded. 10,000. The number hung in the air like a death sentence. The Concord fleet was outnumbered 25-1. Chen nodded slowly. "Inform the fleet. And wake up Prometheus." Deep within the ship, in a chamber that few humans had ever seen, something stirred. The artificial intelligence called Prometheus was not like other computers. It had been built over generations, each new version smarter than the last. It could process information faster than any organic mind. It could control every weapon on the ship at once. It could fight a war in the time it took a human to blink. "Prometheus online," a voice announced throughout the ship. It was neither male nor female, neither warm nor cold. It simply was. All systems optimal. Combat protocols activated. On the bridge, Chen watched the tactical display. The Drovak appeared as red dots at the edge of sensor range, growing closer with every second. They moved like a living tide, countless bioships flowing through space as if it were water. High Admiral Zetheron's voice came through the communication system. "All ships, this is the flagship. The enemy approaches. Remember what we fight for. Remember our homes, our families, our civilizations. Today we stand together against the darkness." It was a good speech, Chen thought. The kind of speech that leaders had given before battles since the beginning of time. But speeches would not stop the Drovak. The swarm arrived like a wave crashing against rocks. The Concord fleet opened fire. Thousands of weapons lit up the void, filling space with plasma and missiles and energy beams. Bioships died by the hundreds, their organic hulls burning and breaking apart. But for every ship that fell, 10 more took its place. The Drovak did not fight like normal enemies. They did not use tactics or strategy. They simply attacked, over and over, with endless numbers and mindless hunger. The first Concorde ship died 3 minutes into the battle. A Kreth carrier, swarmed by 1,000 small bioforms that ate through its hull like acid. Its screams filled the communication channels before cutting off suddenly. Then more ships began to fall. A Velkari dreadnought, its shields overwhelmed by concentrated fire. A Gorvani battleship, its living hull consumed by parasites. Ship after ship, destroyed by the endless tide of the swarm. High Admiral Zethoran's voice crackled through the chaos. "We cannot hold. The enemy is too many. All ships, fall back, fall back." On the bridge of the unconquered sun, Admiral Chen watched the battle unfold. He watched brave aliens die by the thousands. He watched ships that had protected the galaxy for millennia burn like paper in a fire. And he waited. "Admiral," his tactical officer said urgently, "the Concorde fleet is collapsing. If we don't intervene soon, there won't be anyone left to save." Chen's eyes never left the tactical display. "Prometheus, what is the status of the swarm?" "The enemy has committed approximately 80% of their forces to the engagement," the AI replied. "Optimal intervention window in 47 seconds. Admiral." The officer's voice was desperate now. "We have to help them." Chen held up his hand. 47 seconds. On the display, more ships died. The Velkari flagship was surrounded, its shields failing under constant assault. Zethoran's desperate commands echoed through the bridge. 40 seconds. 30. "Prometheus," Chen said calmly. "You are cleared hot." Acknowledged. Engaging. The unconquered sun moved forward. At first, the Drovak did not notice her. They were too focused on the dying conquered fleet, too hungry for the kills that seemed so close. Then their sensors began to scream warnings. Then they saw the shadow falling over them. The first shot came from the main gravity lance. A beam of distorted space erupted from the unconquered sun's bow. It struck the center of the swarm formation and reality bent. 200 bioships did not explode. They did not burn. They simply ceased to exist, crushed into a single point of light that flared once and vanished. The Drovak stopped. For the first time in their species' existence, they hesitated. Then the rest of the unconquered sun's weapons came online. Plasma cannons tore burning lines through the swarm. Missile swarms launched by the thousand, each warhead seeking a different target. Point defense systems activated, creating a visible shell of light around the ship that nothing could penetrate. And from her launch bays, fighters poured forth. Not dozens or hundreds, but thousands. Human pilots in ships designed for speed and death, cutting through the swarm like wolves through sheep. On the bridge of his dying flagship, High Admiral Zethoran watched in stunned silence. His ship's sensors could barely keep up with what was happening. The human vessel was fighting on a level that his people had never imagined. "By the ancient stars," he whispered. "What are they?" The unconquered sun pushed through the swarm like a knife through flesh. Bioships attacked her from every angle, throwing everything they had at her armored hull. Acid and plasma and living missiles struck her surface by the thousands. Her shields held. Where shots got through, her armor held. Where damage occurred, her hull healed itself. She was not fighting the swarm. She was destroying them. Then the Drovak did something they had never done before in their entire existence. They tried to retreat. The swarm began to pull back, ships turning away from the monster that had appeared among them. They had consumed galaxies. They had destroyed civilizations beyond counting. They had never known fear. Now they knew. Admiral Chen watched the retreat on his display. His face showed no satisfaction, no joy, only cold determination. "No," he said quietly. "You don't get to do this to another galaxy. This ends here." He opened a channel to the entire fleet. "All ships, this is the unconquered Sunday the enemy is routing. Do not let them escape. Today we end the swarm forever." The human fighters chased the fleeing bioships. The unconquered sun's weapons continued to fire, cutting down every enemy that tried to run. The surviving Concorde ships, inspired by the human assault, turned and joined the pursuit. Then the Swarm Queen revealed herself. She emerged from the back of the swarm like a nightmare taking form. A bioship the size of a small moon, covered in weapons and eyes and screaming mouths. The psychic heart of the entire Drovak species. Every bioship was connected to her. Every swarm attack in history had been guided by her ancient mind. She screamed across all frequencies. Not words, but pure rage, pure hatred, pure denial that anything could challenge her supremacy. The swarm stopped retreating. Drawn by their queen's fury, they turned back to fight. Admiral Chen looked at the queen on his display. He had known she would appear eventually. He had planned for this moment. "Prometheus," he said. "Load the Omega payload." A brief pause. Then the AI responded, "Admiral, the Omega weapon has never been tested. Theoretical yield is uncertain. I know. There is a 17% chance of catastrophic feedback. I know." Another pause. "Understood. Omega payload loading. Estimated time to deployment, 90 seconds." Chen watched the swarm queen approaching. Her screams filled every communication channel, drowning out all other sounds. Bioships rallied around her, forming a living wall of flesh and fury. 90 seconds. The longest 90 seconds of Chen's life. "Admiral," his tactical officer said, "the Queen is within weapons range. Hold fire. Wait for Omega." The Queen drew closer. Her weapons began to charge, enough firepower to crack a planet. Around her, the remnants of the swarm massed for one final assault. "Omega payload ready," Prometheus announced. Awaiting authorization, Admiral Chen looked at the screaming horror on his display. He thought about the billions of lives the swarm had consumed. He thought about the civilizations that had been erased from existence. He thought about what would happen if this creature was allowed to escape. Fire. A single projectile launched from the unconquered Sunday. It was small compared to the other weapons, almost invisible. It crossed the void in silence and struck the swarm queen's hull. For a moment, nothing happened. Then the universe turned white. The Omega weapon was a cascading quantum collapse warhead. It did not explode. It unraveled. It created a chain reaction that spread through the swarm queen's psychic network, burning out every neural pathway, every connection, every link between her mind and her children. The queen screamed one final time. Then she died. And as she died, every Drovak connected to her died too. 12,000 bioships across 3 sectors went dark at the same moment. Their minds burned out. Their bodies left empty and drifting. The largest hostile fleet in galactic history was destroyed in 47 seconds. Silence fell over the battlefield. Complete and absolute silence. On his ruined flagship, High Admiral Zethoran stared at his sensors. They showed nothing but debris. 12,000 enemies, gone in less than a minute. He looked at the unconquered sun, floating serenely among the wreckage, and for the first time in his long life, he understood what it meant to be truly afraid. Not of the Drovak, not of war or death. He was afraid of what humanity could do when they stopped pretending to be weak. Number the galaxy. After, the debris field stretched for millions of kilometers. Shattered bioships drifted among the remains of Concord vessels, all of it slowly spinning in the eternal darkness of the Kethron void. It would take centuries for the wreckage to disperse, a permanent monument to the battle that had saved the galaxy. The surviving Concord fleet gathered around the unconquered sun like children around a fire. 112 ships remained from the original 400. They were battered and broken, their crews exhausted and traumatized. But they were alive. For a long time, no one spoke. The communication channels were silent. What was there to say? They had witnessed something that would change the galaxy forever. High Admiral Zethoran sat alone on what remained of his bridge. Half his crew was dead. His flagship would never fly again. Everything he had believed about the universe had been proven wrong in a single afternoon. His people had ruled the galaxy for 12,000 years. They had considered themselves the greatest civilization in existence. They had looked down on younger species as children who needed guidance and protection, and then the humans had shown them what true power looked like. A communication request appeared on his damaged console. Admiral Chen was calling. Zethoran answered. The human appeared on screen, looking tired but calm. His uniform was still perfect. His bridge was still functioning. Of course it was. Hi, Admiral, Chen said. Your ship is badly damaged. Do you require assistance? Zethoran laughed. It was not a happy sound. Assistance? From humanity? 3 days ago, I mocked your frigates. I called them toys. I remember. Now I sit in a broken ship while yours is barely scratched. I have lost half my fleet. You have lost. How many ships? None, Chen said quietly. We lost 847 crew members. Good people. I will remember all of their names. 800 dead. against tens of thousands lost by the Concord. Zethoran closed his eyes. Admiral Chen, he said slowly, on behalf of the Velkari hegemony, on behalf of the entire Galactic Concord, I offer you my deepest apologies. We underestimated your people. We mocked you. We treated you as lesser beings. We were fools. Chen was quiet for a moment. You were not fools, High Admiral. You simply did not know. How could you? We made certain that you would not know. But why? Why hide such power? Because power that is known can be countered. Power that is hidden is absolute. Zethoran thought about that. He thought about all the times the Velkari had displayed their military might, parading their warships before the galaxy. They had wanted everyone to know how strong they were. They had wanted everyone to fear them, and in doing so, they had made themselves targets. Every potential enemy knew exactly what they were facing. Every strategic planner could study their tactics and find weaknesses. Humanity had done the opposite. They had shown weakness while building strength. They had accepted mockery while preparing for war. They had played the long game, thinking not in years but in centuries. What happens now? Zethoran asked. Chen's expression did not change. Now the galaxy changes. It has to. The old order died here today, along with the Drovach. In the weeks that followed, everything changed. The Velkari hegemony formally requested a strategic partnership with Earth. For the first time in their history, they asked another species for an alliance as equals, not as subjects. 17 other species petitioned for human military protection. They offered trade agreements, technology exchanges, political support, anything to ensure that humanity would stand beside them if danger came again. The Galactic Concord restructured its entire government. Humanity was given permanent status on the Security Council, with veto power over military decisions. No one objected. No one dared. High Admiral Zethoran traveled to Earth in person. He walked through the streets of cities built by a species he had once dismissed as primitive. He saw their art, their music, their science. He met their children, laughing and playing without fear. He visited the graves of those who had died in the battle. 847 markers, each one bearing a name and a simple inscription. They gave everything so others might live. And he found Ambassador Vasquez. She was in her garden when he arrived, a small space behind her house where flowers grew in the earth's sunshine. She looked older than he remembered, tired, but her eyes still held that quiet strength that had sustained her through 15 years of mockery. Ambassador, he said, I wanted to thank you personally, and to apologize for everything I said at the summit. Vasquez looked at him for a long moment. Then she smiled. High Admiral, I spent 15 years waiting for this moment. 15 years of being laughed at and dismissed. Do you know what kept me going? He shook his head, knowing that one day, the galaxy would need us. And when that day came, we would be ready. She returned to her flowers, her hands moving gently among the petals. I don't blame you for the mockery, she continued. You didn't know what we were, but now you do. The question is, what will you do with that knowledge? Zethoran thought about her words. He thought about the unconquered sun, still patrolling the edges of known space. He thought about the billions of names in the memorial deck, and the oath that humanity had sworn. I will learn, he said finally. I will teach my people to see humanity as you truly are. Not as children to be guided, but as allies to be respected. Vasquez nodded. That's a good start. Years passed. The galaxy settled into a new normal. The Drovach swarm became a story that parents told their children. A nightmare from history. Defeated by heroes from a small blue planet, young aliens grew up hearing tales of the unconquered sun and the humans who had saved everyone. New treaties were signed. Trade routes expanded. Species that had been enemies for millennia found common ground in their shared survival. The Battle of the Kethran Void had done something that 12,000 years of Velkari rule had never accomplished. It had united the galaxy, and through it all, humanity remained what it had always been. Patient, watchful, ready. The unconquered sun continued her endless patrol. She had no home port, no final destination. She simply moved through the darkness, her sensors scanning for threats that might never come. Her crew lived and died aboard her, passing their duties to their children, who passed them to theirs. Admiral Chen retired. Then he grew old. Then he died, surrounded by the people who loved him. His ashes were scattered in the memorial deck. joining the billions of names etched in black stone. Other admirals took his place. Other generations carried on the work. The ship remained, on a distant human colony world, far from the center of civilization. A little girl sat with her grandmother on their porch. The night sky stretched above them, filled with more stars than anyone could count. "Grandmother," the girl asked, "tell me about the big ship." "The one from the history books," the old woman smiled. Her hair was white and her face was lined with years, but her eyes still sparkled with memories. "The unconquered sun," she said. "The ship that saved the galaxy. Is it real?" "Very real, little one. I saw her once, when I was young. She passed through our system on patrol. I stood on this very porch and watched her lights move across the sky." The girl looked up at the stars. "Is she still out there?" "Yes. She's always out there, watching, protecting, making sure no one ever has to be afraid again." "Will I ever see her?" The grandmother thought about that. She thought about the future, stretching out before this child like an endless road. She thought about all the dangers that might come, and all the hopes that humanity carried. "Maybe someday," she said. "If you're lucky." The girl pointed at the sky. A distant light was moving among the stars, so far away it was barely visible. It could have been anything. A satellite, a transport ship, a trick of the eyes, but the grandmother knew better. She had seen that light before, long ago. "There she is," she whispered. "The unconquered Sunday." The little girl waved at the distant light. A simple gesture, innocent and pure. A child saying hello to the protectors who watched over her while she slept. 47 kilometers of human determination drifted through the void. Her crew went about their duties. Her weapons waited in silence. Her engines carried her forward, ever forward, into the endless night. The galaxy had looked at the human Tittingen-class warship, and the galaxy had never recovered. Not because they were conquered, not because they were afraid, but because they finally understood. Humanity had never been weak. Humanity had never been primitive. Humanity had simply been waiting. Waiting for the moment when the galaxy needed them most. And when that moment came, they had answered. They would always answer. The unconquered sun moved on through the darkness, a silent promise written in steel and fire. As long as she flew, as long as humans drew breath, the galaxy would be protected, not because humanity wanted power, but because they remembered what it meant to be helpless, and they had sworn, in the names of billions dead, that no one would ever be helpless again. The stars turned slowly overhead. The little girl fell asleep in her grandmother's arms, and somewhere in the endless night, the unconquered sun continued her eternal vigil, watching, waiting, ready, always ready.